Okay, this is very similar to the last one. The only difference is this time we're still talking about taking parentheses to a power. So whatever's inside the parentheses gets raised to that power. So we're going to see this rule a little bit, okay? But it just ends up being a little bit more complicated as things get longer. But the rule doesn't change. It just gets longer, okay? So what we do if we have something like this is to the power of, look, if this whole thing is to the power of m, that means this m basically applies to each thing on the inside, okay? Now careful, because it applies to numbers and variables a little bit differently, okay? But if I have things inside parentheses and then an exponent, that exponent applies to each piece, okay? Here's why. Let's talk about what this means, okay? Inside the parentheses, what does this mean? This means 2 times x times y times y. And if it's to the third power, that means this whole thing is repeated 3 times. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means it's 2 to the third power. Look, there's 3 2's being multiplied. Now be careful here. This is not 2 times 3, right? That's 6, but this is not 6. This is 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, okay? So just careful, right? 2 to the third. So look, this 2 to the third power is 8, 2 times 2 times 2. Now look, there's also, so we just did that, 2 times 2 times 2. Now let's do this, x times x times x. Well, that's x to the third power. And notice, right, that 3, this became x to the third power. Now here, what about the y's? This is y times y times y times y times y times y. That's a total of 6 y's. Now how did that happen? Well, that was 2 y's 3 times. So we came back to this rule, and we ended up multiplying the exponents there, right? But either way, you can see that that 3 applied to the 2, it applied to the x, and it also applied to this y squared, okay? And this is what we get. Let's take a look at more examples. If I have just a simple one like this, right, you can picture this. This would be AB times AB times AB times AB times AB. That would be 5 A's and 5 B's being multiplied. Okay, here. Let's write this one out one more time so we can see it. Because I want you to always feel comfortable if you're like, wait, if you kind of get confused, you can always, always, always just write it out. This is what's here. Okay, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's 3 to the 4th power. So 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. You could also do 3 times 3 is 9. This 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 times 9 is 81. Either way, you get 81. This is C times C times C, times C times C times C, times C times C times C, times C times C times C. That's 4 groups of 3 C's. That's a total of 12. Okay, notice these ended up multiplying. Right? That's this rule, because there were 4 groups of 3 C's. Now here, there's just 1 D in each group, so there ends up just being the 4 D's. Okay, so notice, this was not 3 times 4, right? For the number, it wasn't 3 times 4. It was 3 to the power of 4, which is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Now the exponent, those did end up multiplying, because that meant that this was 3 C's 4 times. Okay, so let's try to do it here without multiplying it out. Without writing it out. This is going to be 2 to the 4th power. So that's 2 times 2, that's 4, times 2, that's 8, times 2, that's 16. Okay, and what you might find helpful is you just might like do this and go 2 times 2, that's 4, times 2, that's 8, times 2, right? You might need to write it out in order to keep track. But 2 to the 4th power is 16. Now, here I have 1x, and there's going to be 4 groups, okay? So that's going to be a total of 4 x's. Here I have 3 y's in each group, and I have 4 groups, so that's going to be a total, I'm multiplying, that's going to be 12 y's. Here I have 2 z's in each group, and there's 4 groups, so that's 2 z's 4 times, that's going to be a total of 8 z's. Okay? Now lastly, remember we talked about the rules always work. So here, we know in this case, we're going to end up multiplying exponents, right? We know that it's this situation where I have an exponent on the outside of the parentheses and on the inside. So I'm going to multiply. So this is negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, okay? And like I said, we'll talk later about what those negative exponents mean, but for right now, this is what it looks like.